it's wonderful to meet your mission president and mission president's wife, and that's sort of a very spiritual experience to hear everyone's testimony and whatnot. But once you're done with that, you go to your areas, and our area was, I think it was a 5-6 hour train ride. My first area was a 5-6 train ride away from Sapporo, all the way down south. And the first day, it was December 23rd or 24th, and the ward had an activity where they were going to old nursing homes. And there were 6 missionaries in the area, and 2 of them were gaijin, or white people, foreigners. And they had us dress up in Santa suits. And so my first day, I got to the mission field, the first day I was really thinking, okay, it starts now on. I was wearing a full Santa suit and trying to read along lyrics in Japanese. So that was a wonderful first experience. I was really happy about my progress with Japanese in the MTC, and really excited to meet people and start talking. And I realized that it was so much harder than I thought to communicate with the members and with everyone. But my trainer was so supportive of me during those first few weeks, first few months, that it was so helpful. He was always complimenting my Japanese, and he was so patient. Every time I would ask him for a word that he had said 10 times earlier to me already, he would tell it to me again. So I was really grateful for that. One of the things I felt so inspired by was my trainer's patience in helping me learn Japanese, and also his insistence that I, was speaking well. And then my next companion, after my trainer, there were just times where we would talk to people on the street, and he would just not talk. And I was so frightened by those experiences, but it was hugely beneficial for me. I realized that I should never fake it. So I should never pretend to understand what the other person was saying. And that was one of the realizations that I think was one of the most impactful realizations I made on my mission. That I should say, I'm sorry. I didn't understand what you said. Could you tell me again what you said? Maybe in more simple terms or whatnot. And that made a huge impact, because on my third transfer, I didn't feel super confident talking to people, but I felt like I could converse with people. And I would have to sometimes set the stage and say, sorry, you're playing a little bit over my head. Could we come down to a level I could understand? But it was a great experience and helped me gain confidence. And so that was one thing I tried to do more of, although I was never as good as it as my senior companions were. When I was a senior companion, was to let other people speak the language, let the younger missionaries speak the language if they hadn't had much exposure to it already, and give them opportunities to use it and discover themselves in a new language. I also think that sharing the gospel is a very difficult thing in English. And you got to master how you're going to share the gospel in English before you try and tackle it on a new language. And what I mean by this is that there are words that we use when sharing the gospel that are abstract and sort of difficult to define. Words like remission of sins, or meekness, or lowly of heart, that come up in the scriptures. And, you can translate those words into Japanese, but most people don't know what those words mean. And so you have to come up with ways to define those words simply. And it's a great mental exercise, I think, to figure out, okay, what does the word meek actually mean? How would I define that in English? Okay, now then in Japanese, what does nyuwa, which is the word for meekness, how would I explain that? Because no one's heard that word before, but it's in the scriptures all the time. So that was one of the great aspects of learning a new language, was really having to analyze your testimony and think, okay, what do these words mean that other people don't understand? Starts with God. What is God? Because, in Japan, the image of God is oftentimes very different from a Western image of God or an LDS image of God. One of the things I was very surprised by on my mission in Japan was how much, in general, the Japanese people liked America. And there were several people that had this adoration of America. And when I was in France, it seemed like the opposite was true. And so it was cool to be cool because I was American rather than, brainless, as sometimes you feel in France. No offense, but I was grateful for my experience abroad in Europe because I feel like experience where you don't understand what a lot of the people are saying, or experience trying to learn another language, is hugely beneficial when you try to do it again. So, learning another language, I feel, is one of those things that really lets you understand life better. And so that was or make it more meaningful. So that was a huge highlight. French uses the Roman alphabet and Japanese uses largely Chinese characters. And so that's a huge difference. And so while you're learning European languages, sometimes the grammar or the words feel familiar to what you already know. Whereas when it comes to the Asian language, you sort of feel like you are plopped into a new waters that you've never experienced before. And, you read right to left, up to down, up and down. And that's like, you're allowed to do that in the world? Sort of shake some of your previous assumptions. So I really love the experience learning Japanese because it does shake your assumptions and it is so different. Whereas, when it comes from Europe, a lot of those languages have their heart in Latin or Germanic languages or stuff like that. So it's great to get something completely different. Hokkaido is a unique place. I don't know when exactly it started, but sort of like America was pioneered by Europeans, Hokkaido was pioneered by Japanese people in sort of a similar time frame. And so the Japanese really started to come into Hokkaido, I wish I had looked this up previously, but maybe the 17th century or 18th century and 19th century. And as a result, the people you meet will not have, their ancestors are not from Hokkaido. It's sort of a new place, but so it's, I would say the thing maybe to put, if you were just called to Hokkaido, the thing you might be comforted to know or distraught to know is that Hokkaido is not your stereotypically population-dense area of Japan. There's a lot of country and beautiful landscapes, and apart from Sapporo, there are parts where it's very, very sparsely populated. A lot of old people. It's wonderful. One great part about Hokkaido is that it has 4 very distinct seasons, and I think the mission currently, the way it's organized, you're finding a lot, and also you are on your bikes all the time. So you are outside all the time. And that was one of the things I loved is, you get to be outside for most of the day. And it's so beautiful. I served in Hokkaido is just one big island. So I served in 3 of the 5 areas I served in, I could see the ocean. And I remember in one of the areas I served in, the stars were so bright every night, like I'd never seen them before. And I would just bike home and look up at the stars and think, it was a great day to be a missionary. And also I just loved the active aspect of it. Felt like I was in pretty good shape for most of my mission because, you're biking like, I don't know. There were days when we definitely biked more than 10 kilometers. But, you're biking and moving around a lot every day. So it's great. It's wonderful. A lot of the jobs are in Sapporo. And if they're not in Sapporo, they're in some of the other biggest cities. And so when you move out of Sapporo, there are less young people and more families or older people. So in Sapporo, there are a lot of young professionals, students. There are also a couple of other college towns. So you'll get a couple of towns with a lot of people in their 20s. But as you go to some of the areas that are really country, you'll find a lot of older people, and this is one of the causes of that is because of the current low birth rate in Japan. And you really feel that when you are on your mission, particularly because in general, when you go around housing or talking to people in the streets, the older people tend to be the ones that are in their homes. So, I feel like I came back from my mission and I had talked to a lot of old people. But that was wonderful because it gave me such a unique perspective to talk to all these old people and to love them. I talked to someone that had seen the atomic bomb fall when he was a little child. And I talked to so many people that had memories of World War II and memories of Americans coming at the end of World War II and handing out free chocolate and candy and cigarettes and just being ecstatic about it. So I really treasured that aspect of life in Hokkaido, that there is a lot of old people who tend to be kind of lonely, who sometimes want to talk your ear off, and that's great for a missionary. People that are willing to talk. It's fun. But Hokkaido used to be inhabited by a group of people called the Ainu, and they were sort of persecuted in a similar way to how the Native Americans were persecuted in America. And so, unfortunately, there are not very many Ainu left. They've a little bit intermarried and largely vanished. But there are vestiges of the Ainu culture in Hokkaido. So a lot of the names of places, if you were to say them in Japanese to other Japanese people, they would be like, is that Japanese? Where's that? What does that mean? And it's because the words originally have come from the Ainu language. If you ever serve in Tomakomai, you should make sure to go to the Ainu Museum because they have a sort of historical museum there. And now there are some ethnographers that are looking a little bit closer at the Ainu culture, but I don't know much. But I do remember at that museum they talked about the Ainu language, which is distinct, and the people, which look very different from the Japanese people. They have beards, and think a little bit closer to think of mix between Russian and Japanese, and maybe you're there. Yeah. Religious practices, sort of sacrifice heavy, sacrifice bears and whatnot, kind of reminiscent of Native American religious practices in my mind, but I don't know. I love Japanese food. One of my, just getting to eat the way I did for those 2 years is a wonderful experience. God, I love fish. I learned to love fish so much. I hadn't eaten much fish before my mission or on a regular basis, but one of the best culinary periods of my mission was towards the end, and I was in this tiny little branch, and the branch president rang the doorbell one day, and he said, "My dad caught this. It's yours." And it was enough salmon, fresh caught salmon, to last us weeks and weeks, where we had it, 2 or 3 times a week. And we would just grill it up, put a little bit of soy sauce and this radish that they call daikon on it, and eat it with rice and soup. And oh my gosh, it was so good. And then also during one of the last days of my mission, I just thought, I just love these fish so much. And one experiment I did is we took really good salmon, and I had some of it raw as sashimi, and then I had some of it grilled, and I tried to decide which one I liked better. But they were both so good I couldn't decide. So I love them both equally. I made the decision sort of towards the end of my mission that I was going to start buying a lot more fish. And it was a lot of fun. I remember one time when I was a trainer, the first meal I made for my greenie had all these little, I don't know the word in English.
Like minnows?
Yeah, sardines maybe? Minnows or sardines. And, I grilled up like 12 of them and I just like put 6 of them on his plate with like some potatoes and a salad or something. Anyways, I just hope he had a little bit of I was very impressed at his reaction because I was a little afraid he was like going to be like, what are you doing? I have to stick with this guy. He's like, no, they're good. I'm happy to be here. So it was fun. There's this wonderful part of Preach My Gospel where there's this quote from Richard G. Scott, and it's in chapter 7, and Richard G. Scott says, when national cultures or traditions are in line with the gospel, those cultures or traditions should be embraced and cherished. And when they are not, they should be, put away. And so the recommendation under that point in chapter 7 is to write out a number of ways that the culture that you are in is different than your culture back home, and then realize what sort of things are in line with the gospel and not. And so, of course, I talked about respect to the ancestors, or just how organized everyone was, how healthy everyone was. It's like, oh yeah, these are really big differences, and I should put these into my life. And hopefully I'm starting to do that a little bit. But there was one thing that I did feel was a little bit different, and that was sometimes the lack of expression of love in Japanese friends and families. And there's this story that I've heard of, the way you translate "I love you" into Japanese is "Look at the moon, isn't it beautiful?" Because they don't really say it the same way that we do all the time. And so the idea of something romantic is just, oh, look at the moon. It's romantic and beautiful and sort of has similar connotations as we would say "I love you." Anyways, I told my companions all the time I loved them, but I didn't really expand it much beyond that until I think it was my second to last transfer. And I was reading that part in Preach My Gospel under chapter 6, where it has you do a self-reflection on, do I express love to those close to me when appropriate? And I thought, I'm teaching a guy right now, a couple of them, and I really love them. I want them to be happy. I want them to join the church. I want them to have their goals fulfilled. And one of them was 70, and one of them was 21, 22. And the one that was 21 or 22 had been investigating the church for a year or more, just really, not really advancing in his learning of the gospel, but I just loved him. He was such a great guy. He could remember every missionary's name, very friendly, loved nature. And so anyways, one day, instead of a lesson where it seemed like he didn't always agree with what we were saying, we thought, what if we just asked him to go on a walk in this beautiful park that's right in one of our areas? So we went on a walk and we had a wonderful conversation, and it was a blast. And at the end, I felt like I should tell him I loved him. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll see you later. And I gave him a hug and I told him, I love you. And he later told me, when I left the mission, he gave me a letter saying how much that meant to him, that I had said those words to him, and that how much he desired to share bright words with others, and how much he wanted to share God's words with others, because he thought, I love you is God's words. And I think that is true as well. God is love, so wouldn't the expression of love be similarly God's words? The other 70-year-old that I talked about also had, sort of a big reaction to the words, I love you. He said, in Japan, people don't say that very often. It's not common he said, if I think of my obosan, which would be like a Buddhist preacher, telling me I love you, I would jump, it would just be crazy. So it's very bizarre to me that you come in as a teacher of religion and you say I love you. That's just not what I expected, but it's wonderful. And he didn't have any family at that time, and I feel like we were his family, and I still have that very close bond to him because I told him I loved him. And I only told a few other investigators I loved them in my last transfer. I think it was only a total of 3 people that I told them I really love you. All of them guys. I wouldn't feel comfortable saying that to a girl on a mission. But that was an instance where the culture was different, but I felt it made it all the more meaningful that I chose to do something that was culturally out of bounds. And I'm so happy I did that, and I wish I would have done it earlier. Many of the people I taught on my mission, or who I'd witnessed that other people taught, were very influenced by their ancestors in making the decision to join the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so one of the people who I taught and just loved was this 73-year-old man who, in one of our first lessons, said, ever since I've started meeting with you guys, I've started to have dreams about my ancestors. What does this mean? And of course, that's a blast of a question to answer for a missionary. And one other 80, I don't know how old she was, but she was above 80, recent convert. So she was just baptized by other missionaries a little while previous, I think 4 or 5 months previous to my coming into that area. And she was shocked to figure out that her brother, who had died a few months before the first knock on her door from missionaries, had this Bible that was sent to her when they were sort of divvying up his possessions. And the Bible was very well annotated with all sort of different marks. And I had the chance to be there when she sort of showed this mystery of my brother was a Christian and I never would have dreamed of it. And I was there with a member and we were doing sort of after baptism lessons. And the member said, I think the spirit of your brother persuaded those missionaries to knock on that door. And that was, these type of experiences that I'm describing where people's ancestors seem close and are rooting for the people of Hokkaido. I had several of those. I was able to see several of those sort of experiences where I really felt like Japanese ancestors want the people here to learn more about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. A lot of people in Japan will say, I'm Buddhist, and then when you ask them, okay, well, tell me what you believe. They can't respond to that question. They don't know what they believe. They can't put it into words. And so at first, I had the reaction of, oh, well, this is just some fake mess. This isn't real religion. I don't know what they're believing. And I feel like there were other missionaries that were also caught into that trap of maybe not putting value into their beliefs because it didn't seem like there was much to them. But in my second area, I taught a lady who talked about her deep reverence for her ancestors. And when you go into most homes in Japan, there will be a butsudan, which is a shrine to your ancestors. And people treat it differently, but some people will really have that as a place that is central to their worship in the home. And so they will put food there, sort of as an offering to their ancestors. You'll often see bowls of rice as an offering to your ancestors. And I recognized with this one lady that we taught that she had been prepared by her Japanese religion to receive the gospel because it turns people's hearts to their fathers. And I had that experience several other times. I just thought it was so cool to hear these grandmas talk about their religious practices, about remembering every day their ancestors and saying thank you at the beginning and end of each day, and bringing food to their graves and to their butsuran as sort of an offering of respect to their ancestors. I think the spirit of Elijah is alive and well in Hokkaido.
What was the craziest food you had in Japan?
Either whale or fish guts.
What was the craziest or most dangerous experience you had?
Japan's pretty safe, so I didn't have that many. However, I once was sort of taken by the police and had to stay with the police for a few hours.
What was the most important lesson you learned from your mission?
How to worship Heavenly Father.
What was the greatest skill you gained on your mission?
Listening to people.
What was the most spiritual experience you had?
It's a tough one. On one of my last days in the mission, I knelt down at night and I tried to thank God for everyone who had made my mission experience so wonderful. And I just started naming people and things and life events, and it was incredible. The spirit that was just, I felt like I was being attacked.
What was the craziest weather you experienced?
Blizzards. Yeah, there were some bad ones.
What's the best piece of mission prep advice you could give?
Share the gospel with people.
What's the thing you admire most about Japanese people?
Either how polite they are and how much they think about how other people will, how other people react to them, or some of the stuff I touched on earlier about how they, think of their ancestors as close to them.
What's the funniest language mistake or other mistake you made?
So the word for cute is kawaii, and the word for pitiful is kawaso, or kawaiso. And there's a grammar where you put so at the end of an adjective to make it sound like this seems like this. So I once tried to do that and told a mother that her child was very kawaiso, which means pitiful. And I thought I was saying, she seems cute.
What's the hardest experience you had?
Companion relations. Congratulations on your mission called the best mission in the world. I think that, for you it will be, for me it was. And I think that there's a reason people get called to the missions they get called to, because God knows everything, and He wants us in those specific places. I had a few experiences on my mission where I was praying for people, praying for my investigators, and sometimes I would take time to pray for investigators or people who weren't even in my area, so people I'd taught previously. And during those times, I just felt so clearly that God loved this whole island, loved the whole island of Hokkaido, and wanted so many of His children to choose the right and learn about the gospel on the island. And I have a very deep love for both the land and the people that live in Hokkaido, and I hope that lots of other people can cultivate that love as well.
I lived about 8 years in Japan in total, including my mission. And so I have a lot of interesting experiences between Japanese and American culture that, for me, sometimes I'm a little astounded that Americans do this or Japanese people do this. I mean, for one thing, Americans are very abrupt and what's the word? Very bold, I guess you could say. They're not afraid to ask the hard questions or get in your face about certain things. Whereas a Japanese person is more conscious of the people's around them and how they think and how they feel. It's very much a community society where, all for one, one for all kind of thing. And if you're not a part of that community, it's hard to get into it and for them to accept you. But once they do, then you're like brothers for life kind of thing. Whereas America, we're pretty much, I want to say we're all individuals. I mean, outside of the church, I think a lot of people find themselves as individuals, not as we're a great community. Another funny thing is I love talking about this, the toilets in Japan. America, you just have, sit down ones. There's nothing special. But in Japan, you either have the super nice ones that talk to you and squirt water at you, or you have really horrible ones that don't even have a seat. They're called squatters. I guess that's what I call them, squatters. You just squat down and that's it. And, I find that so funny. Come back to America, I'm like, there's no seat warmer on this? What's up with that? But I'm glad we don't have the squatters, because those are horrible. Like, worst moments of my life. Another thing is how loud Americans can be. I mean, I'm in college. It gets pretty loud. But, Japanese people get loud if they want to, but I feel like it's very calm and very withheld. Whereas Americans were just yell about everything and don't care about who hears us, or I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of, I like my quiet time. Let's see. Japanese culture. What really amazes me is how much Japanese people respect their ancestors. I think that you find that a lot in Asian cultures. But with the Japanese, it's not so much religion per se as it is tradition, but actually thinking about their ancestors. Because it's not like they think every day about God necessarily, but they think about the people that gave them life, their parents, their great-grandparents. They think about them, and they actually they strive to be able to impress them in a way. Like, they can't fail, they don't want to fail, because that'd be a disgrace to their ancestors. I know in the church we try to have family history work and indexing and all that great stuff, but maybe we don't think about who are our ancestors as much as we should. And I feel I'm very American in the sense that I don't really think about it too much, and I really respect that of the Japanese people. My mother served a mission in Tokyo a long time ago. Don't tell my mom that. But her Japanese is still fairly well, because she has had many opportunities, with my dad being in the military and us living in Japan. She has many opportunities to keep speaking Japanese and actually keep in contact with the people that she could help convert to the gospel. And in turn, they became my friends. One of them is, I call my second mom, my Japanese mom, and she's amazing. I love her so much. But my Japanese wasn't perfect. My listening was a lot better going into the mission field. But because my mom speaking Japanese, and also being able to interact with her friends, and who became my friends, I was able to pick up Japanese a lot faster, I think, than some other people. Going into the MTC, I understood a lot of cultural things that maybe, or not going into but coming out of the MTC, I understood a lot more cultural things that some of the Japanese, the non-Japanese elders did. Also, I understood more of how to say certain things, not in a American accent, but in a Japanese accent, and that really helped me talk to people a lot better. And I felt like people understand me more so than they would if I hadn't had that experience before. Also, I think I said this before, but my listening was very, very good. I could, because I had heard it before, I could understand what the people were trying to say. The hard part was helping them, like, speaking the language so that they can understand it. But I was able to follow conversations very easily. And I pretty much knew what they were saying, which is surprising. And I think for some elders it's different. I think they learn how to speak before they actually are able to listen. No, I think one way is better or not. No, I just think it's different ways for different people. And no matter what happens, you're still going to affect people. Just because I had more experience in Japanese doesn't make me a better missionary. Just gives me a different set of skills that I could use. And I think that's the same with anybody. Maybe some person is a little more talkative than I am, or maybe they are more of a people person. But they use that set of skills to their advantage. They don't try to be me, they try to be themselves. And I think that's an important thing when learning a language, is being yourself, not trying to be this elder or sister you put on a pedestal. But personally for me, I am so grateful I had the chance to live in Japan before, and that I was able to grow in my Japanese skills on my mission. It really blessed me, and hopefully it blesses me and other people in the future. In Sapporo, there are about 3, let me count them real quick. So we have the Asaikawa steak, we have the Sapporo, there's the 2 Sapporo steaks. So I think there's 3 steaks and then 1 district. And that's the east side of Hokkaido, which is the island that Sapporo's on. The Asaikawa steak is in the north, then the 2 Sapporo steaks, they cover the west side and east side of Sapporo, along with the south. The temple is currently being built in Atsubatsu-ku, which is a part of Sapporo. And it is amazing. It's so beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Just from pictures, it's not completely built yet, but they're going. So if anybody gets a chance to go right now, you'll be able to see the structure and probably be able to see it complete. I imagine they'll have the groundbreaking in about 2 years, I think. And I think that's what the date is set for. A beautiful temple. I mean, just imagine taking a Buddhist temple and a regular LDS temple and putting it together. And that's going to be the Sapporo temple. And it has a beautiful Japanese garden with cherry blossoms and little bridges and everything. It's going to be beautiful. Sapporo is known for its agriculture. A lot of cows, a lot of sheep, a lot of corn, a lot of potatoes. Just a lot of produce that gives the food for the rest of Japan. So Hokkaido is known for having the best food in all of Japan, especially fish, because there's just a lot of fish in the waters around there. One of my areas, Kushiro, was my first area. The sushi was this long and like that thick, compared to how sometimes you have more rice than there is fish on there. But it is so good, so fresh and juicy. Squid is also very popular in some areas. You actually can eat a live squid. You just pour soy sauce on it and it starts moving around, but you have to eat it. It's a fun experience. I love Japanese food. I mean, it's not just hydrated or dehydrated noodles and sushi all the time. It's so many more, and I could probably take about an hour talking about all the food. Probably get really bored, but what I love about Japanese food is that it really uses everything they have around them. Because Japan is a very mountainous island. It's not super fertile in the sense that there's not a whole lot of places to plant stuff. So what they use is what they got. They don't use too many extravagant things that may not be common. They use very common things in their food. But of course, sushi is amazing, and ramen is just a totally another story when you go to Japan. It's not none of this heat up in the microwave kind of thing. It's fresh made noodles with fresh broth. So good. And Sapporo has Miso Ramen, which is the best ramen there is, in my opinion. I can't really explain what miso is in English. It's just miso. It's kind of soybean. Anyway. But other things that they have there, what's unique with maybe talk about ramen again. What's unique with Sapporo ramen is that they add corn and butter, which is not a normal ingredient to in other ramen in Japan. So a lot of tourists from around Japan will go to Sapporo and they have to have corn and butter in it because that's what Sapporo does. Also, I talked about this, but squid. There's a lot of squid, especially in the lower areas, and they use that a lot. Very good. I love squid. It's chewy, but not as chewy as octopus. I mean, you got the classic things that missionaries cook. You have curry, yakisoba, which is like stir-fried noodles, mapo which is a Chinese tofu dish, fried rice, trying to think what else. Gyozas. Oh, I love gyoza. Like pot stickers. What else did we cook? We cooked a lot, actually. At least when, if you were my companion, we would have cooked a lot. I think those are like the main ingredients or main dishes we cooked, because they were simple but very, very good, and I really enjoyed them. Whenever you go to a member's house, which I'll be honest is not often, but when it does happen, they treat you like kings. I remember one member, they just had all this sashimi all over the place. And sashimi is like sushi, except just without the rice. It's all over the place, and just missionaries are like, go for it, just eat as much as you can, and we took them up on that. But what also got me is when you have members who they weren't really planning on having missionaries, but the missionaries have to be there. Like, oh, come in, we'll feed you, and then you get to experience what a real Japanese home is. Not like how most members do. They have to have an amazing meal for the elders, but they weren't expecting it, so it's just a normal Japanese dinner. And you'd have things like, you have curry, but you also have just straight up fried fish, not battered, but just grilled or just fried. And it's just so interesting to experience that, because I would never experience that before. I don't really tend to eat fish heads all the time, but hey, those eyeballs, they're pretty good. I've heard they're the best part, like the healthiest part, so I don't know if that's true, but I also have miso soup, soybeans, but those are probably my favorite. Now, food that is kind of bad, this thing called natto. Natto is fermented soybeans, and I don't know who thought of it. I feel like someone left the soybeans outside for a few weeks and they remembered it, and then they took it out, just kind of played with it. Oh, seems legit. Just ate it. This is great. We should put it on rice and toast. Put a raw egg on it. Be great. I don't mind it. I can eat it. The smell is horrible. It's just throwing like a dirty diaper in a dumpster, living there for a few weeks, and then coming back. Yeah, it's basically how it smells, but it doesn't taste too bad. I don't know who would have thought smelling that and I'll put that in my mouth. Oyakodon, this is a good dish, not a bad dish. Oyakodon is where you take egg and chicken and you cook it in like a soy sauce kind of broth and you put it over rice. It literally means parent meets child in a bowl. So I love that. But it's really good. It's really easy to make. If you ever want some, just come by my place. I'll make it for you. But it's really good. Some of the candy they have there, this thing called Black Thunder. Black Thunder is worth more than gold. It's only well, it's not that expensive. It's only 32 cents comparatively. But it is so good. You could get someone in Japan to do anything with Black Thunder. It's like, will you listen to our message? Nah. Will you do it for a Black Thunder? Maybe. We do for 2? Yes. But it's so good. Love it. Imagine taking a Oreo cookie, crumbling it up, and then spreading amazing chocolate on it, and you have a chocolate bar. Then eating it. Then going to heaven. That's Black Thunder. Is super good, and they're supposed to be bringing it to America, so be excited for that. Of course, you have haichu. That's really common candy. You have Pocky, which is the pencil covered chocolate sticks. Yeah, you have those. But you also have amazing bread. Like they like their bread, but not wheat. It's all sweet bread. So there's one called melon pan. I don't know why they call it melon pan, because I guess it's supposed to taste like a melon, but it just tastes like sweet, really sweet bread. It's really good. You also have ampan. Ampan is bread with a filling, and this filling is red bean paste, anko, and it's sweet beans. So it's not like, don't think like kidney beans or anything like that. It's very sweet. A lot of Americans or foreigners don't really like it. They think it's gross. I really do. It's really good. You have to give it a chance. Oh man, now I'm getting hungry. Drinks, you have CC Lemon, which supposedly has 70 lemons worth of vitamin C in it, supposedly. Mitsuya Cider, which is kind of like a Sprite drink. It's really good. Aquarius, it's the Japanese Gatorade, but it doesn't taste like Gatorade. It's just a sports drink. Oh man, there's so many good things. But I'll leave it there for you to find out. You'll find out. So this was my 4th area, and we just got a call that I was going to be training somebody, and that we needed to leave as soon as possible on the bus because our area was a little farther away from the hombu, or the mission home. So my companion at the time, Japanese, wanted to get a transfer box. In our mission, there is a company that takes all the missionary stuffs and moves it for them. The church has a contract with them. And so you can get a big plastic box to put one suitcase, and then on top of the suitcase a bunch of other stuff that maybe you can't fit inside the suitcase. And it's really convenient. But he wanted to go buy one. So we decided to go ride our bikes, go get the box. But that was our first mistake. Carrying the box while riding our bike, that was a big mistake. So I'm riding along, come to a stoplight, and we're in a hurry, so my companion decides to turn right and says, "Follow me." So I follow him. And as we're going, I can see a couple walking down the sidewalk that we're riding on. And sidewalks are smaller in Japan, as is everything else. So instead of having like this much space, we only have like that much. Okay, maybe not that much, but a very short amount of space. So as we're going, he rides his bike holding the box, and he accidentally bumps the hand of the man walking, and he says he's sorry and just keeps going. Doesn't think much of it. It's a plastic box. Like, sorry. And I say, I'm sorry, and we keep going. Then I just started to hear, ah! Oh my goodness! And he's screaming back there. I stop and trying to figure out what's going on. His wife comes up to me and says, "What's your name?" Peterson? Other Peterson? Well, what's his name? Nakano? I mean, why does that have to do? Did you know why he ran away? He didn't run away. He's right there. He's coming right now. So he comes in. He's like, "What's going on?" And she goes up to him and says, "What's your name?" He says, "Elder Nakano." I was like, "I just told you that." And we're asking the weird questions of the wife when the guy comes up, still like writhing in pain. He's like, "Look what you did to my hand!" And we're like, "It looks fine to me. Are you okay? We're so sorry." And he's like, "I know I'm an adult, so this pain, I may have broken my hand, but if it had been a little girl or something, she could have died." Like, okay, I don't know about that, but we need to help you some way. I mean, can we take you to the hospital? No, I'm calling the police. Police. No, we'll take you to the police. Just calm down. So we took him to the police that was really just like a block away. I mean, wasn't that big of a deal. And, we're talking to the police, talking about what happened. He asked for our identifications. We show our IDs, and the guy shows his ID. And it happens to be an ID card that says he's mentally unstable. In Japan, that is a thing. You have to have a card like that. And so the cops are like, "Oh, okay. Well, let's go to the scene of the crime." Scene of the crime? What? So we have to reenact what happened. So my companion is, pretending riding his bike with one arm or one hand, and the guy keeps changing where he got hit with the box, and it's just really like sketchy. What is this guy up to? Meantime, I'm just talking to the cops, trying to get to go to eikaiwa or English class. So, and they're getting interested in the church. So, here, just come on, take a flyer and come visit us sometime. Oh, okay, yeah. They're really funny, and I got really good friends with the cops after that. I just go around the town and say, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" They're like, "Oh, it's going good. Just go get some donuts." They're really, really funny guys. Anyway, so the potentially handicapped guy says that, "Okay, just don't let it happen again. I just don't want to see a child getting head trauma or anything like that from you ramming them with your box." Okay, talk to you later. So we left, and he calls us again and says, "You need to come to the hospital because my hand is broken, the doctor says." We're like, "What doctor told you that?" So we go to the hospital, and this is all happening one day, and we need to make our bus. So we go to the hospital, and he comes out of the bathroom and says, "Look at my hand, it's all sweating." It's like, dude, you just washed your hands. It's just, really frustrating. So supposedly he wants my companion to pay for the medical bills. And he wants to pay compensation as well, because in Japan you can't work if you're mentally unstable. But he said in a month he was going to get clearance to start working again. But because of this, he can't work now because he has a broken hand. And so it would have been a tragic story if it was true, but there's no way it was true. So, he finds out what Nakano's number, or Elder Nakano's number is, keeps calling him, even after he transferred away, just keeps calling him, till finally, it had been 2 transfers after that incident. I had been done training, and then I transferred to another area. And while in that area, the mission president called me and says, "Hey, you have to go back to this area. You're going to court." And I'm like, "What? I've never been to Japanese court." "Yeah, neither have I. Good luck." And so I meet my companion on the train, and he's like, "This is funny how we're meeting like this." Yeah. And we meet with our lawyer, who's some church officiated guy, and he says that I just need to hear testimonials, and then I'll go talk to the judge, kind of thing. And so I gave mine. What happened? The Nakano gave his, and luckily the church was able to pay the compensation instead of the Nakano's family having to pay for it. But just that whole experience is so dramatizing. I was scared out of my mind. I was worried. I know Japan's a pretty civilized country, but you don't know. There could have been some weird thing. Okay, the foreigner gets 40 lashes. I don't know. I don't know. But from this day on, the guy still calls the mission home, and there's a list of numbers you're not supposed to answer on the phone. If you answer them, he'll start yelling at you like, "Where's Nakano? Give me the boss. I want to talk to the boss. I need more money." Blah blah blah. So yeah, it was because of me and my companion. You're welcome. So this is in Kitami, with my first bean, or my first greenie, I guess you could say. And we were teaching this lady who we thought was a Kinjin, a gold investigator. She had so much potential, but this lesson was going long. She was understanding the plan of salvation, but she had a lot of deep questions. And then when we answered them, she didn't like the answers, which is quite interesting because she had accepted everything before. And then the members would try to help, but they weren't really helping. It was kind of making it worse. And we were so confused and so frustrated on what to do. It was very hot, and I just want to get out of the room and just go out and do some missionary work. It was Fast Sunday. I was hungry. I felt like we were wasting too much time. It was just my feeling, and I felt like that I was failing that day, So we get out of the lesson, we hurry back home, and we just get snacks to eat because we just want to get out and find the people ready to teach. And we get to the Genkan, the doorway, and we pray. And right before we go out, I have an emergency. Like, I think I'm going to explode. Like, I got sick to my stomach. So I stop and use, or I see and use the restroom. I'm just so frustrated with myself. I'm wasting all this time. What are we doing? Like, how is the Lord going to bless us if we're, just wasting our time like this? And as soon as I'm done, my companion says, "Hey, should we pray again? I think we need the Lord's guidance more than ever." And I was kind of taken aback by that. I didn't think about that. I mean, we had prayed, but I don't think we had prayed very sincerely. I think we wanted to get out the door as soon as possible. But I felt like, we needed. I felt like my companion was right. We needed to pray. So we prayed that we would be able to find the person that Heavenly Father would want us to find, and that we would be led by His will, not our own will. So we prayed and went out. A couple of people just kind of brushed us off. Then I saw this man just eating his fried chicken while he was walking, and I usually don't bother people when they're eating because I just think it's awkward, but I felt really impressed to talk to him, so stopped him and we just kind of talked about all sorts of things. Come to find out, he's really interested in Christianity. He thinks that Jesus Christ is a very interesting topic, and he wants to learn more about our church. And gave him the Book of Mormon, and turns out he was the one that Christ wanted us to find, that the Heavenly Father wanted us to find. He, amazing man, is still very active to this day. The amazing thing is, he's not from that area. He's from a little town 2 hours away. He wanted to come to a bigger city for his day off that happened to be on Sunday, And he happened to be walking back to the train station at the exact same time that we were out in the streets. If we hadn't left the time we did, we would have missed him. He would have been out shopping or probably would have left. And to me, that testifies greatly that I don't know what I'm doing. Heavenly Father does. I just try to do the best I can. And that the Lord's will always be done. It's not my will that is important. It's the Lord's will. And I just think back and I'm just astounded at that. I'll never forget Yamashita Kyodai. Brother Yamashita, I mean. Very, very special guy. Loves the Book of Mormon. And to think if we had gone long in that lesson, if I had gotten sick, if we hadn't prayed again, if all these factors hadn't have happened, we wouldn't have met him. And it just is a testimony to me that God loves his children. And I know that he cares about us and that his plan is eternal and never changing. I know that God is real, and that he loves every one of us, no matter if we're black, white, or Asian. I know that he loves us because we are his children, and that he cares for us and gave us a plan so that we can return to him. I know that Jesus Christ is our Savior, and through him we can have eternal life and fulfill the purpose that we have here on earth, and that is to have joy and to be happy and gain eternal life. I know that the Book of Mormon is true, and I've discovered that so many times throughout my mission and throughout my life. Now, the truth of the Book of Mormon has made me the man I am today. I know that Joseph Smith was a prophet, and that Thomas S. Monson is a prophet as well. And I know that the mission is the most important thing that I've ever done. If I hadn't gone on a mission, I wouldn't have the grades I have now. I probably wouldn't be here at BYU. I know that Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ are real. Now this is the true gospel of Jesus Christ. And I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.